All right, so we are live. I'm here with some community members, and this whole conversation right now is going to be, focusing on a collaborative effort for Web3, and how Constellation is reaching out to get out other ecosystems, and that's kind of what I was pointing out in this post the other day, with this e pluribus unum uh, meme the other day. So, you know, this was actually presented by a guy in the community years ago. And, I made sure that I heard his voice and I kept in contact with him. And thankfully, that relationship that I built with these guys, it ends up that they are pretty significant in Hollywood, and they're developing applications, and they are exploring ways to use Constellation's Metagraph technology with, incorporating this all-in-one media suite. And so that's what I met with these guys the other day. It was yesterday. I had a lunch meeting with them, and they were telling me a little bit more about their app. And then they, on top of that, they showed me this really cool uh, uh, alternative to the Stargazer wallet that they thought would be great. So these are different versions of the Stargazer wallet that we all know, which is great, I think. This one's pretty patriotic, I guess. This one's kind of cool. And then this one was actually a version, for those of you who know, this was one of the original versions, this little Stardusty guy. This is the current one that everybody knows. And then this one is actually my favorite one. So it kind of incorporates the Constellation logo, and then it makes it into this like secure, like Pentagon-ish star. And then what's really cool is if you log in, it opens up this row here. So I mean, that's just gives you kind of an idea of the things that the cool things that people are doing. Um, and I just really want other communities to be aware of what's happening within this community. We have this hackathon coming up in about a week. So July 15th is the hackathon. And, I look forward to other people building on this ecosystem, new ways that, you could possibly use your existing ecosystem and tie it in with this ecosystem, taking the best of best worlds, so to speak. And I was talking to Bearju before we got on here, and he was talking about another community that he thinks has some interesting ways that maybe Constellation could benefit from one another.
Yeah, there are a couple communities that had come to mind. The one that we were talking about beforehand actually was working more with Theta. For those of you that are familiar with Theta, and their video streaming solution. And the one thing, they have a pretty good network, but one of the things that I really enjoyed about them is, I mean, one of the ways I think we benefit them the most is, number one, our microservices framework that we have with Constellation could definitely ensure, for example, something like optimal data delivery. So reducing their buffering occurrences. There's improved scalability on our end if they were connecting in with us, right? So our microservices nature kind of allows them to handle larger user base and increase streaming traffic. There's our enhanced security and so forth and so forth. So I think them utilizing us would be really, really good. And the other one I think I had spoken about earlier too was the graph. Are you guys familiar with the graph, GRT?
Yeah, did you want to share that screen that you were showing me?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share. This was something that, let me pull this up, share screen. And then this was, so I spent a lot of time, let me go after the tip topping for you guys. I spent a lot of time just kind of researching more and more into Web3 myself, because I don't have a major tech background or financial background, anything like that. I'm a speech therapist by trade, but I'm just fascinated by this technology, and originally got into it, like 6 years ago, actually, and really figuring out how we would benefit from it as speech therapists. And since then, it's just been like a deep dive rabbit hole for me. And Web3 has been kind of the big focus for me on that. And so when I was thinking about, who we could collaborate with, communities that we could connect with, in my Web3 search, the graph here had popped up. And so this is just this website I have here from thegraph.com. This is their blog services, all about an introduction to them and where they fit in with Web3, right? And so for folks that are kind of unaware, is all about really just about data organization and data querying and stuff with the graph. And what I really like is that they would fit in really well with Constellation's data clearinghouse, right? Where data is that centralized hub, and then the graph would be able to connect into that hub and connect to all the different blockchains that are connected to Constellation, and be able to search and query that data a heck of a lot faster, right? And organize it a heck of a lot faster. So this was one that I really, really enjoyed. Let's see. Their transparent ledger. Oh yeah. And then with their API. So this is just something that if folks are interested, I would definitely recommend going over to this website, perusing the information here. But this is really just, this is like tip of the iceberg, right? When it comes to Web3 stuff, right? This is just tip of the iceberg. There's so many different use cases, so many different ways that we could connect with communities. I will pull up more information in just a few minutes about Theta. I have some stuff here pulled, but I'll come to it in just a second and let you guys kind of weigh in on this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I've talked about an awful lot. It's all these different and interesting, unique use cases that could be applied. Because this microservices framework can be scaled out into any use case. So you mentioned, like you're a speech therapist, and so there's plenty of ways that can be applied, and that in and of itself, ties into what I was talking about just a couple of days ago. That everybody right now, it seems like they're hyper focused on what next Fortune 100 company is going to build on what chain, when in reality, 70% of the global GDP is made up from small to medium sized businesses. So, like if you own your own, speech therapy business, you are exactly the GDP. You are 70% of that global GDP, right? And it's getting these people, and it's the network that's going to capitalize on that first is who's going to see like crazy explosion, right? Um, this one of the networks that's already been doing that is Internet Computer. And so here's an application on Internet Computer that I've been testing out for a couple of days. It's called Open Chat. And it's, to me, the easiest way to describe this is it's like, it's kind of like Telegram. But the difference between Open Chat and Telegram is everything on here is completely on chain. Every one of these messages is on chain. This guy, Cody, he gifted all of the community members in my group free tokens. Like, that's all on chain. You can do these swaps completely on chain. There's even this other community here, these Windows guys, and they have. Let me see if I can pull it up. They have this. this operating system that's completely on chain. So it looks like a let me see. Sorry for the full-on potato-ness here. I'm still trying to navigate this this community. I'm trying to find the link here. Is it this one? Oh yeah. Here we go. So so I got to share this every single time I do something. It's good. You got to share the different screens. So see here, boot up to desktop, right? And then so this is what pops open, right? And so this is all on chain. This is all on internet computer, and then it boots up this operating system, uh, and it's got everything. It's got like little mini games, this like pinball game, and everything works. I mean, it's wild stuff, and it is completely on chain.
Getting some flashbacks here from that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's so crazy, and it's so cool, and like, everybody is always asking, like, okay, when are things going to be on chain? Well, like here you have it. It's on chain, and it's just I don't think enough people are out there that are aware that you can use distributed ledger technology in this way, right? But this upcoming hackathon from Constellation in a week is hopefully going to target that those small to medium sized people and these developers, and it's not just developers. I mean, maybe there's other small to medium sized businesses that have knowledge in coding that want to integrate like an added layer of security, because that's one thing that blockchain provides, actually, is an additional layer of security to your existing platform.
Yeah, that's a good segue, Dagnum, I think, to the point I wanted to make. And it's just really like, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. But I think ultimately there's been this mindset. Oh, man, it's going to make me go into system settings to share my screen here. Oh, boy, that's fun stuff. I might just shoot you a link if I can do that. But
yes, it's if you just do the present,
and yeah, that's what I try to do, but I'm on a Mac, so it's
okay. Yeah. Just send me the link in Telegram.
I think I can do that. So just give me a second. I'll kind of keep hitting the point home of what I was trying to say. But ultimately, like, this industry, Web3, there's been a lot of thoughts for a long time around like everyone's going to build on us, and we are going to be the giant island ecosystem that kind of swallows the internet and swallows all commerce. And look, like we all love what Constellation has built. And there's good reason for that, because ultimately, there are a lot of advantages to the Constellation and Hypergraph system in terms of scalability, in terms of security, so on and so forth. But this is also a platform that we're speaking on here where we can try to leverage, the community. And part of that, to me, from where I sit, is absolutely, about trying to connect Web3 communities, and recognizing that, each system that's being built has kind of strengths and weaknesses. And so if you go down a little bit, there should be like the classic, kind of telephone, connected network. I don't know how far down it is. I apologize. I had it up perfect if I could have shared my screen. But what I'm trying to get Dagnum to show here is basically, the classic thing where you've got, phones connecting to each other and the network effects of having a bunch of different users on one network. And, if you're familiar, that's kind of the idea of Metcalfe's law. Here you go. Yeah. 2 phones, 5 phones, however many phones that is. And this is a classic illustration of Metcalfe's law and, the power of the connectedness of individuals connected through a network. And now, Dagnum, if you go to the other one, and people who, the next link I sent you, People who have heard me talk about this in Telegram groups like Dagnum's group, the power of Metcalfe's law is much more powerful. And I won't get it super into the math, but it's like Metcalfe's law is like n squared, n being the number of people connected to the network. And, the next level is actually, n to the 2n, and that's Reed's law. And so the idea, why am I bringing this up? Because look, a lot of people in crypto and in Web3, I own a bunch of different projects. And the reason why is because I think they're solving different problems and they all have strengths and weaknesses. And some of them might be an island solving one problem, but a lot of them, have taken a certain approach with some advantages and some drawbacks. And there is an ability here as we kind of mature as an industry in Web3 and mature as an investor base to recognize that we can bring communities together and leverage communities and grow the pie for everyone. And, Constellation and the hypergraph is really good at a lot of really important things. Obviously, we all believe in that. But there's some things it can't do as well as other things. So understanding and being comfortable with the quality of the technology that's been built by Constellation and knowing that it can solve problems for other communities, but also recognizing that other platforms, maybe it's an ICP, as Dagnum was talking about before, can also add value to the Constellation ecosystem, whether it's building on Constellation, whether it's a Metagraph building on something else in unison, or whether it's just, combining those kind of deficits of the two different protocols and kind of diminishing them by leveraging, some interoperability there. And so, I've always been a big believer in interoperability. People who know me from Telegram or from Twitter, I refuse to call it X, will know that I've been a champion of interoperability for a long time. And there's what needs to be done from a technical standpoint. But, Stardust is all about, the community and leveraging the knowledge we have, the connections we have to try to bring these protocols together and sell, the different teams on the advantages of working together. And maybe that's a demonstration, from community members to begin with. But it's something I think everyone should kind of keep in mind is that we can have impacts on the success of this industry and growing that pie, certainly for Constellation and the hypergraph, but also the entire Web3 pie. And if that pie gets bigger and, you believe Constellation has data provenance and route, which no one else can compete with, as the pie grows, that value gets bigger. And so just something to kind of remind people of. So hopefully I didn't get too nerdy on my diagrams here, but for me, at least, I'm a visual person and it helps kind of hit the point home. But, those different networks being able to speak directly to each other, leverage each other is a much more powerful thing than just individual, island nodes within a network.
You're exactly right. And, I'm going to piggyback off of that to showing everybody something that is actually live that actually uses that principle. So Constellation's Iron Spider, the universal DLT kit that they built for the federal government, implies those exact principles that you're talking about. So, here's Constellation, but, they also are incorporating Simba, right? And then they're also incorporating CGI, right? And in doing so, you're utilizing strengths from each one of these different applications and networks, and you're getting access to everybody in CGI, right? And that's, thousands of contractors. You're getting access to Simba chain, and Simba and CGI are benefiting from Constellation's hypergraph transfer protocol, right? And so it's this way, it's this collaborative way that I think is going to be the path forward. It's not this tribalistic one chain is going to rule everything. I mean, one chain is certainly not going to rule everything. And we just need to break past that, somehow, which is pretty exciting from a Constellation standpoint, that they're actively going out there and trying to work with other ecosystems. They're part of the DREC, which Hedera started, and in DREC, who is it? Algorand, Hedera, Ripple, and a couple of other people, right? And it's this kind of stuff is what's going to move the needle for mass adoption, because that's what we all want, right? We all want this thing to explode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, Asim, I love the way that you explained all of that so eloquently. Like, I know that you're worried about getting all nerdy with it, but I think sometimes that's what we need. And the infographic that you shared regarding Metcalfe's law and Reed's law, like, I think that really just sums up really how simple it really is, because I think you're right. I think you're both right. We see a lot of tribalism, right, in cryptocurrency. We see a lot of people just on their separate islands, like, we're going to be the chain that does this and runs it all. No, we're going to run it all. No, we're going to run it all. And that infographic that you showed, like, very simplistically sums it up, where, if we are united, if we are as a whole cryptocurrency ecosystem, because our whole goal here, right, is to create a conjoined and collaborative Web3 that is also interacting with legacy. And I really don't think that we can do that as an entire industry without some form of collaborative effort. That's why I'm really, really excited about the hackathon, just to see what people come up with. Are there other communities and other ecosystems that possibly join in on us? I'm really excited to hear about whoever's going to be sponsoring this. I'm waiting for that info to come out, just because I really think this is just going to be an eyes on everything, right?
Yeah, man. Like, I don't really want to build up too much, hype around the sponsor, but I'll say sponsors, plural.
Yeah.
It's big, and that, I think, once people see who is who's going to be sponsoring this thing, it'll just add, just a little bit more, I don't know, like
Credibility,
credibility, I guess you should say, right?
Yeah.
But the other ones that are bringing you this hackathon is Stardust Collective, which they're also funding this hackathon. So it's in 7 days. It's a week from tomorrow. So this obviously is on Universal Time, because it's still Sunday where I'm at. But it's July. Yeah, it's July 15th, and it's going to be big, man. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to build your application specific network, whatever that is. It could be speech therapy. It could be taco therapy. I mean, it could be anything, right?
I'm down for taco therapy.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
That sounds fantastic, man.
Yeah. And man, I mean, it's $100,000 is up for grabs, right? I mean, it's pretty substantial prizes here. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not to say that that's not the only way that you could win here. You could win the hackathon, but you could maybe get a grant from Stardust, or maybe you're like Dfinity. Dfinity has their own like Web3 funding stuff. Maybe it's such a great idea that maybe even Dfinity would want to partner in and throw in some money with whatever it is that you're building. Or if it's a fucking crazy idea, you never know. Somebody might just want to buy it. Because that happens all the time now, right? You've got people like, Amazon and Google that have more money than they know what to do with, and all it's going to take is just one idea, and it's like, man, why didn't I think of that? That's a $1 billion idea. Like, let's scoop it up, right?
Absolutely.
So Dagnum, when are we going to get the Alpacathon, where we start giving away Paca tokens for like best ideas, to create collaboration between Constellation and other, more retail, let's say, focused utility tokens? I'm putting you on the spot here. This is not something I've mentioned to you, so this by no means people think this is about to happen. I'm just saying, like, we always talk about Paca and the way it can be leveraged. That's an interesting idea there. I mean, I'm sure someone smarter than me can refine it, but it would be awesome to see leveraging the social network of the community to try to, instill and spark more collaboration. Because we all know, the hypergraph, it's had so much progress and impressive wins on kind of the government side and on the kind of private side. And we know the kind of the retail's coming, and obviously the hackathon helps with that a lot. But another way to potentially turbocharge that is to get people who have already built things to kind of tap into the hypergraph, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, one of these questions here from Snafu, longtime community supporter. So is it Coca-Cola? I mean, I don't know. You're going to have to tune in to watch. But, Coca-Cola could absolutely leverage this Alpaca token, right? They could put out some campaigns around trying to onboard users to maybe try out a new flavor, right? There's so many different ways that you could utilize this thing, and it really is a social engagement tool, and this is how you're going to incorporate that Reed's Law that you were talking about. You're just going to get tons and tons of people participating and giving out these tokens. It's like that ride sharing app that's built on Solana. That's a great idea. And, I praise them, as much as I don't necessarily think Solana is the greatest network in the world, but that idea is great because Uber is like crazy expensive. And so building that ride sharing app utilizing blockchain is a way that you can, lower the cost. But as far as my understanding on how that network works and what actually they're using the chain for is only for the NFT. They're not, they're leaving out like the biggest part, like onboarding these users. And that's something that this app could actually do, this teleport app. They could still have their Solana side and still do the NFTs with Solana. They can keep it that way. But if they really wanted to mass onboard users, they could leverage the Alpaca Metagraph. They could just copy and paste the code base. It's all open source right now. And they could just tweak it a little bit. And instead of doing things like rewarding people for swapping a token on XLX, right, you could reward people with rideshare tokens just by using it, or maybe sending it, right? Like I could send it to you and be like, hey man, you need to check out this this teleport thing. This thing is like great. So I share a token with you. And because I shared it with you, I get like, maybe 1,000 extra tokens.
Like extra rewards, yeah.
How much would you save just by having all the transactions for free, right? Yeah. And then you're just snapshot, and then, or obviously, if it grows big enough, it wouldn't be free. We know the tokenomics, but then you're selling the data on all those rides to actually more than pay for the payments, right, of the snapshot. So. There's definitely, and how many businesses can you apply that logic to? So many.
There's just open to so many. The possibilities are endless, and it's just, I think what they've done with the Alpaca Metagraph is just absolutely brilliant, right? That especially with that social engagement action and getting people in and utilizing it. I mean, it goes again, yeah, it goes back to Metcalfe's law, right? And your network is only as strong as the many users that are using it. So
I can take this one if you want, DAG, on this. I'm always someone that can speak on Quant Network if you want. I think you might have frozen.
I think he may have frozen. Yeah.
I guess I'll take this question then. I mean, I asked this question. The reason why I feel comfortable asking or answering it is I asked this question about 8 months ago on a DAG happy hour Constellation happy hour. And look, I think the original partnership was about smart cities and leveraging the interoperability of Quant to be able to let the hypergraph speak to a lot of the legacy systems that you would need to in a smart city, and then leveraging the data provenance of DAG and the feeless or incredibly low fee transactions and throughput potential of Constellation's hypergraph. When you think about all the data that would be generated in a ubiquitous smart city, right? Makes a lot of sense. I don't know that that's still being worked on. I think both Constellation and Quant Network are a little tight to the vest on that. I think my take personally, and this is just my opinion, is that they've both, let's say, focused on other opportunities in the near term. I mean, we're not seeing a dramatic rise in insane smart cities, and IoT has been, let's say, a little further out than a lot of us thought 5 or 6 years ago. All my understanding is that neither one has kind of closed the door, right? And Constellation and the hypergraph is working on interoperability and data interoperability themselves. How that will interact with legacy systems, will it be as, let's say, hypothetically seamless as what Quant has built with Overledger? I'm not sure, but I would think that if the opportunity is there, that they would rekindle that relationship. If it's not already, again, I'm just going based on what's been publicly said. It makes all the sense in the world, and I think it's just two serious, enterprises that saw potential in each other a few years ago and thought, hey, rather than fight you on something or try to do this all ourselves and rebuild the wheel that you're working on, I'd much rather leverage you. And so that kind of dovetails into what we're talking about in the opportunities that you have in Web3.
Yeah. So here's the old partnership, and like the guy that is asking the question, there hasn't been much information out since then, but it is about incorporating, smart cities and getting the data and Constellation, leveraging their validating of data like at the source. I mean, that's one of these things that this network can do. So any camera, any sensor could be hooked up and validated on this network. Now, one of the reasons why possibly you haven't really heard much about this partnership is because it wasn't until like 8 months ago when you could actually launch an application on Constellation's network. But now that you can, I would assume that we might hear more about this partnership that's from both companies. But there's other people that are actually working on integrating Quant's technology and Constellation's hypergraph technology. Intrana. So Intrana is building. I believe that they're not too far away from actually showing something. I'm actually going to be hosting a video space just like this from the Stardust account with these guys on Thursday. So save the date. But what these guys are doing is they're incorporating Quant's Hyperledger to any small to medium-sized business that wants to take advantage of it. The problem with quant and overledger that a lot of people might not realize is unless you have experience in coding or experience in actually implementing these the quant tooling, it's not super easy. But what these guys have done is they have built a plug and play solution. So, like if you wanted to use your speech therapy business and utilize Quant's tooling, you can go through Entrana and it'll just be all under the hood. You don't even have to do anything. It just works. And senior leadership at Quant is actually helping these guys build. So like if you had any doubts on the seriousness or the legitimacy of these guys, well, I mean, the senior leadership at Quant are working directly with these guys. And then if you wanted to even scale it out even further than that, let me share my screen here. So the National DigiFoundry, which I've talked a lot about before, those of you who don't know, the National DigiFoundry is a collaborative effort between the federal and enterprise systems. They're working on a way to facilitate mass adoption of digital assets. You've got the National Science Foundation, you've got Space Force, and you've got the U.S. Department of Treasury. So Entrana is actually I think they're the chair or they're the lead in this this thing right here, this financial product tokenization. So, you're talking about tokenizing mutual funds. Everyone wants to know like when BlackRock is going to be on chain and all that stuff. Well, guess what? You have the U.S. Department of Treasury that's in this thing that's working out on a standardization for digital assets. And if there was any doubt, look at the top of the screen. That's not an Ethereum address. That is not a Bitcoin address. That's not a Solana address. That's a Constellation DAG address. And the reason why is because this whole DAO that's exploring different aspects of tokenization, it's a metagraph. Every one of these things is a metagraph, and every one of these working groups has a specific DAG address. And yes, it might be hard to believe, but it's true that someone at the U.S. Department of Treasury is holding a Stargazer wallet.
I don't think it's Janet Yellen,
though. No, but somebody at NASA has a Stargazer wallet.
Yeah.
Somebody at Space Force has a Stargazer wallet.
Hey, right? Dagam, is Entrana, are they on integration net yet? I think they were close last I remember.
Yes, they are. Let me pull this up. I'll pull up the thing. Yeah, you can even see the token. DAG Explorer. I'm gonna share this screen. So we'll change it. So this is the DAG Explorer. You can see all the transactions that are happening right now. You can see here's PACA. So the PACA Metagraph is live. The DOR Metagraph is live. But Entrana's thing is on the integration net. So the integration net is like the bullpen, if you will, before you step out onto the field with the big dogs. And so Entrana is warming up. They're in the bullpen. And let's see if we've got some tokens. Oh, there's Cyberlead just a minute ago. So Cyberlead is another project. They're incorporating gaming. So they have like a proprietary system that is going to stop cheating in games. Let me see if I can expand this out a little
Yeah,
bit.
they have their anti-cheat work that they're doing within the Web3 space, because it's just I don't know if you guys have been following the Web3 space for gaming lately. It is just exploding, man. My goodness gracious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, like the open network, that thing is
Mhm.
exploding because of the games. Because these meme coins on the open network are actually all utility tokens.
Mhm.
You know, it's these little mini games. So here's the National Digi Foundry, what I was just talking about before. So NDT. So if there was any doubt that that thing was a metagraph and that they were utilizing Constellation's technology, well, there it is for everybody to see. The NDT token just submitted a snapshot. We're waiting for the Intrana snapshot to go through, but yeah, so they are on Integration Net. Intrana is. Let's see, we got a question here. This guy's not very technical. Will there be a new internet? So that's kind of like what I was what I was trying to talk about before with the hypergraph. So like HGTP isn't necessarily going to replace HTTPS. It's going to run alongside it, and it's going to make it more secure. So if, for example, you had your application and there was a component of it, like maybe like a website or whatever, uh, the underlying data you could secure on the hypergraph. So if somehow or another the website got compromised, the underlying data wouldn't get compromised. If that makes any sense. So it's not necessarily going to replace HTTPS. It's gonna work along with it.
Yeah, and the Finternet, right, is like effectively then going to be like the new Swift, right? And what I would say about that is they could absolutely consider running probably private metagraphs. I don't think central banks want to have their data exposed for everyone to see. Whether we could go down a rabbit hole of whether or not they should and the balance sheets and all of that. But the reality is one of the core strengths of the hypergraph is being able to have kind of a private island but still be connected to that layer zero that is the hypergraph. And look, it from what I can gather, because this is something I follow, I work in finance. It doesn't seem like at the moment they're working with DAG or working on the hypergraph, but that can change. And it wouldn't, I think the concept here of the Finternet is not so much that every central bank is going to have the exact same technology underpinning their ledger and their system, but that all these systems will speak together in a seamless way. And when you think about the influence of things like the National Digi Foundry, maybe there's a chance that the Federal Reserve will consider running a private metagraph. I'm not trying to tell you that as alpha. I'm just giving you a hypothetical. But what's probably more important, and going back to kind of Dagnam's point, and maybe the way to think about it is, it's more important that DAG and the hypergraph connects to something like this than it is that it necessarily is all built on it, if that makes sense. But that's kind of the point of what we were talking about at the start of this, is that there's going to be a lot of different solutions presented. And what's important is, that pie growing, people seeing the value of distributed ledger technology, growing the Web3 ecosystem, and then the tenets of the hypergraph and the true strengths of the hypergraph, will grab attention from the people as they get more comfortable in this ecosystem.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off your point, I think looking at it as like a whole new internet is I don't know that that's the right like way to go with it is it's really more of like kind of building on what both of you said is it's really just an additional layer. Because like, right, I don't work in finance, but a lot of what we do, like, for example, I have to work a lot under HIPAA laws for data security, with data security, things like that, keeping patient and client information safe. And so, you know, like sometimes when you're using your browsers, for those of you that are connected and watching, like, you know, you'll have your HTTP, your HTTPS, and then, you know, you could end up having an added layer of security, like something as like HTTP or something like that, if it was absolutely necessary. And you could be using it for financial information. You could be using it for medical information. That would be another big use case here, right? Keeping all that safe. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to find the article, but there was some time back where a lot of these hospitals, they were taking patient information. I actually wrote an article on this back when, if you guys remember when Genico did their contest, you know, over a year ago when they were doing their contest, and one of the part of it was you had to write articles about Genico, and so I did a whole coverage on this where, you know, hospitals, they would have the patient information and they would, you know, black out parts of the patient information that was necessary so you couldn't identify patients, but then that data was then being sold. And the problem with that is that then, even though it was sold and even though they had quote unquote blacked out everything, it wasn't that hard for these companies to then go back, remove that portion. And they actually had the ability to look at patient, like sensitive patient information, right? Which is, for those of you that are familiar with HIPAA laws, that's a big no-no, right? That's a huge no-no. So things like that. And so something like HGTP could be something that you're kind of, you plug into. It's just an added layer of security, because like, you're not going to have a whole new internet. You're just going to have a more, I think, expanded internet with just more layers that are added.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I'm just going to bring up the architecture here, so everybody can kind of you know, see like what a metagraph, you know, looks like. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's going to be, you know, anything where you're going to go to a website, you know, and it's going to say, I mean, I know a couple of years ago, like that was all, you know, that was the thing that, and a lot of people actually put that in their handles, like HGTP, you know, /, but you know, in reality, you know, it's about protecting the underlying data, right? And so, you know, you can think of it like what exactly like how you were describing it, right? So you can have this, you know, dual layer approach of securing data, uh, and you know, the underlying data itself from the hypergraph is being validated from the source to the endpoint. And so, you know, that whole thing is anonymized and it's tokenized, and you know, it's sent across the network. And so, if for any reason, for whatever reason, if uh, HTTPS got compromised, well, HGTP is, you know, securing the data itself across a decentralized network, right? And so, you know, you have complete authentication from, you know, inception to digestion, right? And so in that way, it's I think that that's how it's going to be used.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what's really interesting is when you start going into these concepts. Like, one example I can come up with, and I had thought about this for, you know, what, again, for speech therapy, was like, you had done a demo a long while back with Enter the Void on their NFGP technology, right? And so
Mhm.
I had been thinking about that even in and of itself. When you think about connecting this data and then collaborating with other communities, you know, with their technology, for example, you could take something as simple as, you know, writing up care plans, writing up therapeutic plans, putting them into an NFGP where you have the actual like document shared and then actual activities, for example, therapeutic activities embedded in that. And so when you start thinking about, when you start thinking of this about this from a standpoint of HTTP, HTTPS, HTTP, that kind of thing, and you realize that it's all just interconnected, that's when you start, and understanding that collaborative approach and seeing that it's all interconnected, that's when you really start being able to expand all the possibilities.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you just you see, like, I post a lot about all these different systems getting hacked and getting compromised. And the reason why I do that is because if these people did utilize distributed ledger technology, that could absolutely prevent your data breach from happening, because you're protecting the data on an immutable ledger, and everything is anonymized. So that's the other thing that people worried about. It's like, oh well, they're gonna know, Dagnum, went wherever. And it's like, no, they're not, because all of that data is anonymized, and so they don't really know that it's me, and that's the kind of assurance that you have, and it's all secured on chain, and so you can't hack it, and you can't spoof it, but it's just a matter of people actually implementing this, and the more use cases you see, the more people become aware of it. And that's the biggest problem, I think, is just the lack of education around blockchain or distributed ledger technology. I just think that we need to push past the verbiage here, because people get stuck on verbiage, right? And so when you hear crypto, you think of scams and cryptocurrency. But distributed ledger technology is way more than just currencies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
The
the other
whole,
thing that just
yeah,
people.
it's just, sorry.
No. Yeah, I was just going on a little tangent there, but yeah, it's like, so I just think that we need more education around that.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it brings to mind to me, blockchain technology is its own, right, technological entity. The first thing that comes to mind for me is AI, right? That's a huge data point here, where we definitely need a lot more work, especially in data validation. That's huge here. I've been playing around with a lot of the different AI tools, recently, and I'm curious as to your guys' thoughts about how, Constellation's technology ties in with that. Just because, like, I know that we recently, the Constellation just recently partnered with what was it, Forward Edge, right?
Hmm.
They recently they're working with them too. But I'm just curious to see, what you guys think. Constellation's role in securing AI or assisting with AI may actually be.
Yeah, I mean, I think AI, the risk here is, like, what I see happening is, AI is going to be teaching people. Like, that's the reality. Like, you think about how you Google something now. When you Google something, you get to a website, it doesn't look super sketchy, it has your answer. Do you really check that work? No. Some people do, most don't, right? Well, if it's just a
Yeah.
text prompt on ChatGPT, no one's going to check that work. They're not going to, expect to, like, see the citations and really dig deep into it. So then it really becomes important that the quality of the data going in, that the algorithm is actually doing what it said it was going to do and producing the answer that's in accordance with what the algorithm is supposed to do. It's not manipulated. Then you're going to want to know that the data coming out, is safe in transit back to your computer and or mobile phone or whatever. And I think there's some different schools of thought on this. Some people on one side of the fence would say that AI needs to be local and offline. You have your algorithm that's built, and then you have the internet downloaded, and that's the only way you can trust it. is that a realistic solution with where we sit today? Probably not. And so, I mean, just with how I described that, that daisy chain and the provenance you need at every stage of kind of the information transfer from, finding facts to computation to producing an answer to delivery of answer, we can all quickly understand where Constellation fits in on that, right? I think there's a lot of people tackling this problem. I don't think anyone's got a silver bullet, but what I do think is I haven't come across a better solution for keeping data secure in transit and data provenance in transit. And so, look, at the end of the day, if you trust the data going in and you trust the algorithm, that's doing what it's supposed to be doing and producing the answer as expected, and let's say the correct answer or the most well-rounded answer, if it's intercepted and changed on the way to you, that's all lost. So I don't need to shout out other projects but this is a huge problem of our time. And I just see in 10 years, if that's how everyone's getting their information, that's how they're forming their biases. There's a lot of potential there to shape mindset, to shape culture, to influence how population thinks. And so the being able to trust that information in every step of the process, to me, is going to be one of the biggest problems and one of the most important things that humanity has to tackle over the next decade.
No, you're exactly right, 1,000%. And the people at the government get it, and that's exactly one of the use cases that they're doing with the federal government right now is using blockchain and artificial intelligence. I mean, look, AI is going to need blockchain. It's not even a fact, because you're going to have things like deep fakes, and you need to be able to trust the data. You need to be able to trust the input that it's getting. And how are you going to be able to trust the data if you don't have any verifiable proof that where it came from and it wasn't tampered with along the way? And that's where blockchain comes in. Forward Edge AI is doing tons of things with blockchain. This little diagram is from them, actually, and it's about being able to get accurate scores from weather data. But it's not the only thing that they've done. I'll share this. So this is on their website. They won a phase 3 contract with the government. I've talked a lot about these guys. I really want to do like an even deeper dive into Forward Edge AI, because it's a company that it's not household name, right? But they have won so many contracts. They have gotten so much money with the federal government, and they are working with everybody that you can think of. I mean, they're already partnered directly with Microsoft. And as you can see here, they're utilizing the same principles that we just talked about. Like, how do you stop, foreign influence from getting into your systems? And, here's the Azure cloud incorporating their proprietary tech, right? And here's the user, like asking a question, and so they're going to ask the question to the AI that's sitting on the cloud, and so this stuff is absolutely happening right now, but it's even more so than just like stopping fake news. They're also testing autonomous systems in space. I talked a little bit about this last night in a stream. I had a stream talking about this, and I went into some of their papers, and I talked about where is it, National. Oh, sorry, it's the
It's okay. This stream is not running on the hypergraph. That's the problem.
no, yeah, it's this, it's Elon Musk is the Starlink.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think this is the one where they talk about it. Yeah, right here. Autonomous navigation in space. AI powered navigation systems combined with blockchain GPS data can enable autonomous navigation from spacecraft to satellites by integrating AI algorithms that can adapt to the dynamic space environments and predict orbital trajectories. Spacecraft can navigate autonomously, avoiding collisions and optimizing their routes. Blockchain technology can ensure the integration and security of navigation data transmitted between space and ground stations, reducing the risk of interference or tampering. I mean, it doesn't really get any more specific than that. And when they're talking about blockchain technology, oh, I guess it didn't like that. I said something about Solana.
Well, yeah. Well, there's also, I mean, that's a really good example. When you just think about the idea that, if you just step back and like think it on the super macro level here, most of the Western world where this AI systems are being developed have demographic issues, whether it's China, Japan, Europe. US, I think, had the slowest population growth on a percent change basis in the history of the United States in 2021. Now, obviously, some of that was COVID, but the point being, the demographics of the Western world, where a lot of this technology is being, developed, the software is being developed, a lot of these NVIDIA GPUs are going, have a big problem because we have a economic system that is effectively based on perpetual growth, right? Well, if you don't have labor, the simple, without getting too nerdy again, formula is it's labor force productivity, the size of the labor force equals output. Those two things multiplied is your output. And if labor force isn't growing, productivity needs to increase. Well, one way to fix that is to no longer rely on human population for labor force, right? You can have robots. Why do you think Elon Musk is doing this? You can have software, AI, economic agents making economic decisions, trading. And I'm not just talking about trading cryptocurrencies or FX or stocks, but literally trading, commodities or goods all the time. So that's one way to, dramatically increase the potential economic output. That's one of the reasons why so many people are pouring so much money into this, is you can unshackle potential economic growth from human population growth, which has been slowing now for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so one way to think about that is, if you have all that happening, these systems sure as hell better have clean data. And, you better hope whoever's programming it, has good intentions in mind, and that's a whole separate rabbit hole. But beyond that, if you think flash crashes in the stock market are bad, you have no idea what could happen if it's all these economic AI agents, acting on behalf of entities in an automated fashion, effectively, buying and selling goods and services and assets in almost automated contract, smart contract fashion. Imagine what goes wrong if that data gets tampered with, and the manipulation that could go on in society and the economy. So there's incredible levels to this. If AI really becomes this cog that some people talk about, I'm not smart enough to know if it will. I just listen to people that kind of opine on this, and everything kind of comes back to, the data, the underlying data that these systems will rely on, right? And so it's kind of as we kind of increase our compute and increase our kind of potential use of the data, the quality of the data, and the assurance that the data hasn't been tampered with become more and more important. So sorry for that long rambling aside, but it really is kind of a remarkable time to be, talking about a protocol that specializes in that.
Well, that was
No,
amazing.
you're
That was a
yeah,
great explanation.
yeah, that's a that was a fantastic explanation, and I'm trying to find a post that I made a while ago. There's a little graphic, and there was actually a video about some of this stuff, and it's the people from the Department of Homeland Security, and so they're talking about tracking goods and stuff. Let me see if I can find it. If you wanted to add some stuff about that, Bearju, while I scroll
Yeah, that's
through.
what I was gonna do. I mean, I absolutely agree 100% with everything that you laid out, Asim, and I think the key thing here to keep in mind for any of our viewers too is it's like there's going to be multiple solutions, right, to this problem. It's not going to just be a one solution fix all. And I think in crypto, we sometimes tend to get those blinders on and get that tunnel vision in there where we're like, it's going to be, it's going to be this project or this ecosystem that fixes it. But reality, it's going to be a collaborative effort between multiple entities to fix this problem. And Constellation is just I think, going to be one of the many pieces that fit into that. But I don't think it's going to be the only piece, if that makes sense.
I think that's exactly right. And the ability to ensure data is not tampered with as it jumps through ecosystem to ecosystem, through chain to chain, right? Another concept people talk about is, and we've kind of danced around this idea, but ultimately, if blockchains are immutable ledgers, or let's say digital ledger, technologies provide, immutable data. But ultimately, the way this could probably be going in some amount of time, whether it's a decade or what have you, is that's the source of truth, right? It's not going to be a centralized database where it's in Excel or some other, Access, some other kind of antiquated system where somebody, accidentally spills some coffee on their keyboard and some of the data gets changed, right? And nobody catches it for weeks on end. It's going to have to be a system where anyone to touch or manipulate that data, it's logged. So you know exactly who did what and what happened, and they can't change it without authorization in a controlled system. And so obviously Constellation delivers that in spades. It's not the only, like a lot of the distributed ledger technologies do. And so to your point, there's going to be multiple solutions. And the key is that these solutions play nice with each other and you don't create problems with how these systems interact.
Yeah.
100%.
And, here's that video that I found. So on stage, you got Department of Homeland Security, you got Customs Border Patrol, and they were talking about everything that you guys were just talking about. And I don't know if the audio is going to pick up.
You talk about
you guys hear that?
being able to track what they're doing, trends, but they can also create random activities
right
through it.
Absolutely. Actually, that's a very good question. There's a lot of stuff we're getting over 100 malware have been put into AI tools. So that's why in CBP we're being very careful as to what we're bringing inside the fort and what we're using as an official sanctioned AI kind of a project. So what are some of the bad actors?
I would say that we'll divide this into two parts, right? One is the specific to IT, like what AC mentioned. We get millions of hits on our network every day on a daily basis.
120 million.
So that's the number we have. So that's one area, right? Which is all data access, right? I mean, they're all trying to get to some data somewhere. That's what it is, right? So that's one area where we're trying to make sure we are good there, protect everything there as to from a security perspective. There's a lot of happens in the back end. Of course, we cannot talk about that, but I can tell you that's one area. The second area is the IPR violation we talked about, right? The fake goods and some of those things which is coming in. How do we make sure that is not happening? Sorry, I'm going to add one more to that. Actually, the third one is, I think the first panel spoke about the cryptocurrency that is changing how we do business every day. The number of dollars exchanged dramatically going down. It's all on cryptos, public blockchain, which we are allowed to mine also, by the way. We can see who's doing what kind of public blockchain. Anybody can see that. So that's the other area where things are happening, where some of these people are exchanging money not the right way, right? Illegal money transaction, we talked about trafficking and things like that. From money perspective, it's also creating this whole new area of concern.
I mean, bad actors are using it, but so are we. So it's going to be a big battle between some of these folks. It's a continuous cat and mouse game. Anyone else?
I was going to say on the data side, right? There's the behavioral, right? Knowing, going back to my little spiel there about knowing your problem set. Part of knowing your data, you're building your kind of your sort of your criminal vectors and your patterns and your behavioral patterns of who your bad actors are. And knowing your data so well that you will be able to spot those anomalies. Having your full sort of knowing the lineage of your data, so much so that you will have those triggers within your data to kind of sort of spot those anomalies. And that's sort of what my sort of rant, a little one-liner was to say. And when you have that data set mapped out and knowing your full lineage of data is where those anomalies will start to show. That's a kind of very
yeah. And so you are not going to convince me that guy was not talking about the hypergraph.
Well, and one of the things that we maybe haven't touched on tonight that I think is just incredibly important with Web3 and the potential here is not only are we talking about the hypergraph and the problems it solves and the broader Web3 trying to tackle a lot of the problems we have today, but the fact that you can participate in these networks, the fact that you might get a chance in time to run a node yourself, run a validator, is a really powerful thing, right? Like imagine if you could own a small stake in HTTP. What would that be worth if you were able to do that 20, 30 years ago? And it's not just the financial aspect of that, which is obviously very compelling, but it's also the fact that if you're running a validator on Hypergraph or one of these other networks, and most of them are open source code, like you can verify what's going on. And you can also, ensure that like you're contributing to the solution. And that's just a really powerful thing that, individuals haven't had an opportunity to do in cutting edge technology, really ever, or very rarely ever.
No, you're exactly right. And none of that has to do with cryptocurrencies, which, again, it's like, I don't, how we get past, the talking points by all the talking heads. This isn't how Border Patrol is using it. So like, here's the little infographic that I found before, this was like a couple days before that speech that they were talking about, some of these principles. And what they're doing is they're putting in this, global identifier, and it's for the tracking of goods and services. Because we, especially with the CHIPS Act, right, we want to make sure that none of our stuff is going into the wrong hands. And, you can absolutely do that with crypto and blockchain.
Blockchain could absolutely help, if not solve, the traceability issue. I think I highlighted this on my own Twitter a while back about even just a small, minute subset of traceability being food traceability, right? Think about your food system. And you have all these outbreaks that are occurring, and typically those outbreaks, in your food system, they're occurring because there was a breakdown somewhere in the traceability of your food production system. And blockchain could absolutely absolutely provide a fix, and that's just one small example, but could absolutely provide a fix for that.
It's funny. I just want to mention I made a tweet about an identity protocol not associated with Constellation, but the reason I bring it up is because I actually use the exact example you're using of food traceability, and like you can trust what you're eating because we have these guidelines and systems in place, and they're not perfect, but like there's a reason people feel okay eating at restaurants and buying things at stores, and it's because we have these, you know, agencies in places like the United States and Europe that set kind of the standards. And I brought it up because AI, we have none of that right now, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like if you're going to consume knowledge, you're going to want to feel good about how that, you know, the data that kind of came about to kind of create the answer, that when it got to you was, you know, what it was supposed to be, and so on and so forth. So it's just a lot of these things kind of, you know, you kind of come full circle. It's like the same principles in many different facets of your daily life.
No, you're exactly right, and it can be super dangerous, especially when you're dealing with AI. You know, if you're going to talk about these things being used as educational tools, right? So like ChatGPT, which is probably the most popular and well-known one, you know, it's a great tool, but the problem with it is it doesn't necessarily give you the most accurate data on topics, and unless you're an expert in whatever area of questioning that you're asking it about, I mean, it sounds reasonable. I mean, it sounds like full on truth. But, you know, I know for a fact, plugging in some questions in my area of expertise, it's really easy for that thing to get off track. So like my background and expertise is actually in the medical field. And, you know, it's a great tool, but you shouldn't rely on it as of now as the sole source and arbiter of truth, because it can be wrong. It doesn't know everything, but it sure sounds like it knows.
Yeah, so the quality of the like the grammar and this, and you know, that goes a lot to influence you that, well, this must be right. Like it's said so eloquently, therefore whatever spiel it's saying, like it's correct, right?
Yeah. And then you can even ask it like a follow-up question on that, right? And it'll you know, elaborate even further, right? But you know, that can even get way more off topic. And you know, it's just, I mean, I'm sure that they'll figure it out. I mean, there's people like way smarter than me trying you know, trying to use, you know, natural language processing to make these things smarter and better, right? And they will, you know, eventually that they will. But you know, there's, like you were talking about, in order for these things to be widely used and accepted, you're going to be able to just need to trust it. And that's where Constellation can come in, because it can be, you know, that trusted source of authenticated data. So, you know, as an end user, whatever you're receiving is true and accurate. I mean, and you're not going to have to worry about it. And all of that, I believe, is just going to happen without the end user actually knowing it. I mean, it's, you know, it's not going to say Constellation was managing the data, but in fact, it actually was managing the data.
And that's one of the beauties of Web3 is that you don't need, it doesn't need to be the Google search, right? Like it doesn't need to be retail facing. Like technologies will be leveraged without people knowing. And if a tokenomic system is set up correctly, like value will accrue to the protocol and to the owners of that protocol. And so obviously generative economics, like that's the beauty of a lot of these systems, is it doesn't have to look like, I know a lot of people in the Web3 kind of ecosystem, if you will, pounding the table on this is the best because X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, a system set up correctly will accrue value whether or not the user is aware. I'm going to make a little statement here because I just thought of something. Talk about low-hanging fruit for the hackathon. I'm not a programmer, but man, if I was, somebody please just develop a very simplistic example of a voting system. Like, this is such low-hanging fruit for literally, you could build this on almost any blockchain. Like, let's be honest, this is not a rocket science of a problem. But man, when you have the DigiFoundry like attached to Constellation, like, this is perfect. I mean, you're going to get a lot of attention. Somebody out there smart, like, you could probably develop this in a few weeks. I think that would be a great entry in the hackathon from somebody that is not a programmer and doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I know from a Stardust perspective, we're going to be focusing on a lot. Just trying to educate people, further, because there needs to be more awareness, right? That this stuff is actually live, and you can do it. And to talk about, hold on, I'm trying to pull this up because it's funny that you mentioned a voting thing. Because that's actually a use case that's actually live right now on their Metagraph examples.
And when after you find that, I'll share something with you, because you got me, Asim. You got me thinking about another example that I would love for us to see this as like someone. I would hope that this was a like collaboration actually between ICP and Constellation, but about an education platform. But I'll talk about that in a second after Dagnum shows.
So here's Constellation's GitHub, right? And so all of this stuff is open source. Anybody listening right now, or maybe watching during the hackathon, because election integrity is a big deal, and this is the simplest thing that anybody could implement, even like on a state or local level. I mean, here you go. Here's the voting example, right? So somebody right now can just go to Constellation's GitHub, copy this template, and build out a secure voting app. Boom.
Yeah, and then you could have you get issued an NFT if you voted today, right? And then businesses could give you discounts or things like that. Like,
and you could vote all on your phone, and you would get instant results right away. There would be zero doubts, like who won the election. Right?
And you could look up your votes and verify, right? Like, it's just so logical. Why we don't do this, I don't know.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, even like right now, like pollsters are trying to get an idea about their voter base. They could even do that with this, right? They can like send it out and just do like even like mock polls. Like, if the election was held today, right now, like, who would you vote for? Right. And, boom, you could do it. And then they could get an idea of maybe they need to campus this area more than another area, because maybe they thought, they had this area on lock, but, according to the actual polls, maybe that's not necessarily true. But yeah, this Metagraph voting example is live right now on GitHub. It's here for anybody. It's all open source. So somebody could build it right now.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go build my Metagraph.
Yeah, no, when you guys were talking, when we were talking about the authenticity, right, of the data, when we were talking about, and this applies even to the voting, but when we were talking about the authenticity of data, for example, with the data input going into AI, right, One of the things I would absolutely love to see come out of the hackathon, and I had thought about this the other day when Stardust, with you, Dagnam, and you guys, you and Barry did the whole show, and you had ICP on there, and I started thinking about an online education platform purely because, like, when you think about existing online education platforms, like, for example, Udemy is a really good example of that, right? They struggle with like content security and verification of student credentials and stuff like that. So I've looked in, because I've looked into a lot of stuff with these education platforms, and the other thing that they have difficulties with is delivering this educational content efficiently to a global audience, right? That can be a big challenge. And when I started thinking about, ICP and Constellations, their technologies, ICPs, their sovereign blockchain, they can host an online education platform where you have content creators, instructors, and so forth, right? Securely storing and distributing, their educational materials, while also you have Constellation's Hypergraph providing, the scalability that's necessary to handle the large number of students and courses, but also you have that secure data transfer that kind of ensures that that authenticity, right, and validity of the issued certificates and things like that. But it's just something I had thought about, as you were saying what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and Netflix crypto is absolutely right. You could even reward people for voting, right? Because that's the other thing is like getting people to participate. I mean, that's one of the hardest things. I mean, voter participation is at least here in the United States isn't very high, right?
No,
Yeah.
definitely not where it should be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the use cases here are endless. But hey, I mean, look, it's exciting times, and the Hypergraph hackathon is happening in a week. I don't know if we'll get any announcements about the partners before the 15th. But regardless, the 15th is going to be a big day. I mean, it's going to be huge, and it's going to be really exciting to see all the different unique ways that people come about and utilize this stuff. Who knows? Maybe we'll see somebody put up a voting system. I mean, I know that there's three cities right now that are incorporating hypergraph technology. You've got 3 cities in Texas. You've got Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin. So things are happening.
Work in Hawaii too.
Yeah, even Hawaii. Yeah. Forget about you can't forget about Hawaii. Yeah, the Aloha token. Yeah. So, I mean, look, big things are happening, and it's going to be exciting to see, the big things that people come up with during the hackathon. Look, thanks for being here with me, guys. I hope to be doing this a lot more. Everybody that's watching, sorry for the network interruptions. I'm do what I can while I'm here in the Airstream. I'm relying on Starlink, so get mad at Elon Musk.
It went pretty good. It was actually, you only had a couple interruptions. They weren't that long. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I am pretty impressed with the Starlink. I don't have any issues with it, other than when I'm trying to do the live streaming stuff. Every now and again, there's little dips. But as I said earlier, on Thursday, I believe, I'm going to be hosting a space just like this, a video space from the Stardust account with Intrana, who's in Integration Net, and they also have a grant from Stardust. And so, yeah, if you've got a cool idea, like maybe your voting app, I mean, hey, submit it to Stardust, and we'll take a look, and maybe you get a grant for your voting app. Yeah, but unless anybody had any questions, I'll close the chat, and I'll let you guys end with some closing statements if you want.
Yeah, I'll start us off. No, thanks for having me. This was I love conversations like these, and I love open discourse like this because there's such a wide variety of there's so much knowledge and information out there to be shared, and when you have that mindset of abundance and that open mind, there's so many. This is how great ideas are born. This is how innovation revolutions happen, if you will. And so, no, I love that we did this, and I'm really hoping that you do more of these and have more people come on and share their thoughts, because I think it's definitely what we need in this Web3 space, especially, but overall in the whole blockchain atmosphere, ecosystem, whatever you want to call it. I think collaborative approaches like this are definitely needed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more of these in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed hearing the thoughts from both of you, and hoping the community got something out of it. Exciting time for the Metagraph, or for the hypergraph, and seeing what Metagraphs kind of come out of this hackathon is going to be pretty cool. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to kind of being a listener or a watcher and on the other side of this in the future, because I really enjoyed being on it. So thanks again.
Yep. And Nina is exactly right. You can't steal an election if it's all on chain. And you can bookmark this, because I believe someday when it comes to anything federal, all the data is going to be managed by the hypergraph. That's my prediction. And with that, I'm out. And we'll see you Thursday. Tune in with Intrana. It's going to be great. And until then, enjoy and have a good Monday. All right. See ya.
All right. See you guys later.